Everyone. I want to start off just by apologizing for the delay that we've experienced today. We've just been having some technical difficulties. If you are new to one of these webinars, my name is Yeshua. I am the CCSN or one of these social media and outreach coordinators at CCSN. And so I just want to apologize to you again if you're, well, not if you're coming in, but as you're joining us, because we were just having some technical difficulties getting everything set up for today's webinar. But we are ready to go now. So as people are filtering in, hopefully you can hear us and see us, and all the screens are being shared properly. But before we go any further, I'm just going to pass things off to my co-host, Connie.
Thanks, Yeshua. So hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Connie. I'm the social media coordinator for the Canadian Cancer Survivor Network. On behalf of CCSN, I'd like to thank you for attending today's webinar, Surviving Several Cancers Through Support, Stubbornness, and Even a Smile. It's presented by Teresa Tiano. If you're new to one of our webinars, let me take a moment to give you a brief overview of our organization. The Canadian Cancer Survivor Network, CCSN is an organization working with cancer patients and survivors to learn about the complexities of our health system, connect with others to plan action, and act on those plans to promote better care and healthier survivorship. If you would like to learn more about CCSN, please visit our website at www.survivornet.ca. You'll find plenty of information there on us, as well as news, events, and other resources that we think you'll find helpful. I have two quick announcements before I hand things over to Teresa, our presenter today. This webinar is being recorded and it will be available tomorrow on YouTube. The video link will be sent to the email you provided when registering, so you can share this resource or go back and watch it again if and when you'd like. At the end of the presentation, we'll have a short Q&A session for those in attendance. We will be ending our recording beforehand. However, don't feel the need to wait until the end. Please feel free to type questions into the window at the bottom right of your screen so we can have them all queued up and ready to go. Okay, for today's webinar, with that being said, CCSN is pleased to welcome our presenter, Teresa Tiano. She is the chair and co-founder of My Gut Feeling Stomach Cancer Foundation of Canada, which is a volunteer-led nonprofit organization founded in 2016 that is dedicated to support stomach cancer patients, survivors, and caregivers through education, awareness, and advocacy. Teresa has 30 years of experience in the nonprofit sector and has been advocating for patients since 1991 when her father was diagnosed with colon cancer. Teresa is also a 10-and-a-half-year stomach cancer survivor, a 5-time cancer survivor, and a Lynch syndrome survivor. Her advocacy work for patients includes being part of research teams, speaking engagements to raise awareness about stomach cancer, the world's 6th most common cancer and the world's 4th leading cause of cancer deaths. She currently sits on the Patient Advocacy Committee of the Canadian Gastric Cancer Association, which is the CGCA. She's a patient advocate at the Ontario Hereditary Cancer Research Network, and she's also on the patient advocacy team for Storming Cancer. She's also a patient partner on the indirect impacts of hereditary cancer syndrome studies. Teresa is also a member of both the American Society of Clinical Oncology and the European Society of Medical Oncology, ESO, and most recently, the International Society of Female Professionals. Now it's our pleasure to pass it over to Teresa. Teresa?
Thank you, Connie, and my apologies, everyone, for the technical issues, and also just to pre-warn you, in case you hear some crazy fire alarm, they're doing fire alarm testing in my building of all days today. So first off, I want to thank CCSN for inviting me to speak today. Thank you, Connie, for that introduction. Again, the title of my presentation today is Surviving Several Cancers Through Support, Stubbornness, and Even a Smile. So the topics that I'll be going through, I'm going to give a quick introduction. Then I'm going to go through my family's cancer journey, my personal journey with stomach cancer, and Lynch syndrome. Then I'm going to be speaking about my gut feeling, the Stomach Cancer Foundation of Canada, and then again, my personal cancer journey, takes 3, 4, and 5. So, quick introduction. I'm 55 years old, born and raised in Toronto. I've been married for almost 14 years, and I'm a stepmom to a 24-year-old. I'm the youngest of 3 children with an older brother and sister. I have worked in the nonprofit sector for 30 years and specifically in the cancer sector for 24 years. I love to travel and read, and I love art and history. And the reason I'm actually here today and speaking is because I am a 10.5-year stomach cancer survivor. I'm a Lynch syndrome survivor, and I'm a 5-time cancer survivor. That's quite a mouthful, I guess. So, my immediate family's cancer journey. So, this first picture is a family photo taken in the late 60s. I'm the little one who's not smiling in my mom's arms. And I've been told I was a pretty sick little kid from when I was born. In fact, at one point, I was so sick that they had to rush me to the hospital because I had turned blue. And they didn't think I was going to make it. And they gave me so much penicillin that to this day, I had such a bad allergic reaction to it that I cannot take penicillin because I'm definitely allergic to it. This next picture is of my dad, and my dad died of colon cancer at age 65 in 1994. He was diagnosed in 91 at stage 2B, and at that point they only did surgery because they felt back then that chemo did not actually help to in any curative way to help with colon cancer. He did have a recurrence, and then it was at this point that I think my personal patient advocacy began. I reached out to the doctor that had invented a blood test that measured certain levels in the blood that would indicate that cancer was growing. And he was a Canadian doctor, and I reached out to him by letter, hoping that he would respond, and he did. And although my father had no symptoms, these numbers were just escalating. Anyway, the doctor did reply, and he said to me, "You're correct. Your father actually doesn't have much time. It's just these numbers will continue to rise. He's just not showing the physical effects yet." And in fact, Dr. Gold, who was that doctor, was right. My father passed away within 6 months of the recurrence in 1994. The third picture is of my mom, who died 2 years later at age 59 of a brain tumor. She started having seizures about 6 months before she passed away. She had also had early colon cancer about 6 months after my father had passed away. But that was again stage 0 and just removed, and not no further treatment. With her brain tumor, it was a very traumatic experience for myself and my brother and sister. She went to the point of having about 11 seizures a day, and they couldn't quite figure out what was going on. Initially, they thought that it was a stroke. And again, we started to advocate for her and got her in to see one of the top neurosurgeons here in the city. And he basically advised us that they needed to go in and do a biopsy in her brain to figure out, to do the pathology and figure out what was going on. Unfortunately, when they went in to do the biopsy, my mother bled out, and they had to do an emergency craniotomy, and she was in ICU for over 3 weeks, hooked up to multiple machines. Her head was the size of a balloon. And then we got the pathology that she had a very aggressive rare brain tumor for someone her age called an oligodendroglioma, and it was prone to hemorrhaging. And they basically told us that she did not have long to live, probably a year at most. She, post the surgery, she lost her ability to speak, and she was paralyzed on one side. With intense therapy, she did manage to gain some of that ability to speak and walk again. But early December, her tumor bled out again. She hemorrhaged, and there was nothing that they could do. And so she died a couple of weeks before Christmas. And the fourth image is of my sister, who is my older sister, and she was diagnosed with PCIS in 2016. And she had a double lumpectomy, had radiation, and thank God, to this day, she's free and clear. So out of a family, immediate family of 5 of us, 4 of us have been diagnosed with cancer. So my extended family's cancer journey, on my dad's side, out of 11 brothers and sisters, 5 were diagnosed with cancer, 4 died of it. My first cousins, 4 of us have been diagnosed, all under the age of 60, and 1 has died of it. However, on my mom's side, as you can tell, 8 brothers and sisters, 4 were diagnosed with cancer, 2 died of it. Of our first cousins, 6 of us have been diagnosed under the age of 60, and 2 have died. And their children, 3 were diagnosed under 35, and 1 has died. And on my mom's side of her first cousins, a family of 5 brothers and sisters were all diagnosed and died of different types of cancer. And their children, 3 of them, were diagnosed, again, all under probably 50, and 2 have died. And this will make more sense a little bit later on. So my personal cancer journey began in 2002. I was diagnosed with urothelial carcinoma in situ of my bladder at 36. It was a very tiny tumor. I had day surgery. No treatment was required. I was just put under surveillance of having annual cystoscopies, which I do to this day. However, my second diagnosis was in 2011. And in the early summer, a CT scan had shown thickening in the colon. And this was a CT scan that my urologist had just called for during my annual cystoscopy. He wanted to do a more thorough test, and it showed some thickening in the colon. So he was concerned because of my family's history. Luckily, I had already booked an endoscopy and colonoscopy just because of my family's history. Both my parents had colon cancer. And so I went for this scope on July 25th, which was a week before my 45th birthday. And I had the scope, and the doctor told me that I had a stomach cancer. So you have to understand, I was asymptomatic. I had no real symptoms, no weight loss, no change in my bodily functions. I had been feeling off from about the spring, but I was pretty much convinced it was going to be colon cancer when I went for the scope. When the doctor said stomach cancer, and he started talking and going on, all I heard was like nothing except computer sounds and blackness. My world absolutely stopped at that moment. My brother and sister were with me, as was my husband, and at that moment is when I started to self-advocate. This doctor was giving me such a horrible, horrible outlook of what I was going to be facing, which was 2 to 3 weeks in the hospital, open surgery, possibly 6 months before I could really get back on my feet. And so I immediately went for a second opinion and reached out to my urologist, who got me in to see an amazing gastric surgeon at St. Mike's here in Toronto. And I was able to see him within 10 days, and that appointment was completely different. He said that he could do a laparoscopic surgery. He was very comfortable with it. He'd been doing them for a number of years. He did about 40 of them a year. And this is really important for anyone going through stomach cancer surgery, to make sure that you have a surgeon who knows what he's doing and is comfortable with this type of surgery, because it's very, very complex. So my laparoscopic surgery was scheduled for September 1st. And this image here is what I looked like about a week after being diagnosed. So you can see I was not looking sickly. I was in fact very overweight. But that's just to give you an idea. So the laparoscopic surgery was 9 hours. They removed 80% of my stomach with a Roux-en-Y performed. And I was in fact up and walking the next day, eating like minuscule little bites. And I was out of the hospital in 5 days. However, post-surgery and treatment, so this was quite difficult, to say the least. I went through the McDonald protocol, which, sorry, my earphones keep popping out. The McDonald protocol, which was a combination of chemo and radiation concurrently, starting from October through to February. And I went through all the side effects. So loss of weight, extreme fatigue, extreme nausea, vomiting, learning how to eat again without a stomach, let alone going through chemo. And excuse me, and the radiation was incredibly, incredibly exhausting, because as I was going through it, I was losing excessive amounts of weight. And every time they brought me into the radiation room, they would have to readjust the zappers, as I used to call them, because my body was shrinking, and they had to make sure that they were exact in how they, in putting the radiation through me. I was also then referred to my medical oncologist, again at St. Mike's, and both she, whose name is Dr. Breston, and Dr. Grantroff, my surgeon, recommended me for genetic testing, because they felt that due to my history and the fact that I'd been hit with 2 cancers before 50 was just, there something was up. So I went for that testing. And this is at the same time is when I met Katie, who was a young 21-year-old survivor who had just finished her treatment for stomach cancer. And she would later become the co-founder of My Gut Healing Stomach Cancer Foundation, which I will talk about a little bit later. But the treatment side effects, I'm going to go into them a little bit more deeply here. For me, the vomiting was almost daily. I just could not keep anything down. And I needed to learn how to eat as if I were, I think, a baby. I think a toddler portion was too much for me. So I also couldn't eat a lot of foods. So I couldn't eat spicy food. I couldn't eat fried foods. I couldn't eat rich food. So when I would literally eat a quarter of a portion of anything that I was used to. I had to go off, completely off sugars for almost a year. I gave up soda pop, which I know isn't great for you, but I loved it. I gave up sweets. And the whole psychosocial effect of learning to eat again and learning how to live without a stomach And just what that meant in terms of my social being was incredible, because food is life, life is food. We do everything around food. We socialize around it. We plan family gatherings, holidays, everything. And it was so difficult for me to be a part of that. It got to a point where I was afraid to eat sometimes because I didn't know how it was going to sit with me. And I developed this love-hate relationship with food. Every time I opened the fridge or a cupboard, I would have to look and think about how this would affect me. And to a certain point, that carries through way beyond the initial couple of years. I'm 10 and a half years out. I still have issues with food. I'll talk about that a little bit later. I had extreme weight loss, and this was an incredible, had an incredible psychological effect on me. That the change in my self-image was just beyond compare. I went from a size 16, which wasn't healthy, to my thinnest at a size 0. And I couldn't put the two together. I just couldn't see myself as this thin person. And I couldn't quite, and I wasn't anymore the person I was. I had never been thin, but I had always kind of been in the middle. And then as well, there was for me, the psychological effects of ending treatments in February of 2012. Most people are thrilled when they end chemo. I was not. I was petrified. I just thought, oh my goodness, now that I'm finished chemo, I had finished radiation in December. I thought, there's nothing to protect me from this coming back. I had been diagnosed at stage 2B, which at 11 years ago had less than a 40% 5-year survival rate. To this day, stomach cancer has a net survival rate of under 30%. So it's an incredibly lethal cancer. I was very lucky. Stage 2B is considered very early and not the normal time people normally get diagnosed. To top it all off, this is when I got my results from the blood test for the genetic testing. And in fact, I came back positive for Lynch syndrome. So you can imagine I was dealing with all these psychological effects of ending treatment, this weight loss. And then I was told that I had this inherited condition that increases your risk of colon cancer and endometrial cancer and several other cancers. For me, it was a double-edged sword. I had the answer to why I had been diagnosed with 2 cancers, but now I faced the fact that this was a lifelong battle, that the chances that I may get cancer again were really high. And you can see on this image, this little graph here, this illustration, how your risk for getting cancer differs from being a Lynch syndrome, from having Lynch syndrome to the general population. And of course, even strangely enough, I guess maybe thank God, but I didn't get colorectal cancer or endometrial cancer. I got two of the other cancers. So I had stomach cancer and urothelial cancer. And of course, stomach cancer, nobody knew anything about it. There was no awareness, no understanding of it. I barely understood it. Now with Lynch, the mutation that my family carries, so this is the family on my mother's side, where there were so many people who had cancer and died of it. It's called MSH2, and it's one of the, I'd say the worst of the 5 Lynch mutations, because you become very high risk for all types of cancers. And then I was told that I actually had to let my family know that they needed to be tested, because I had tested positive. So I had to, first of all, let my brother and sister know, which was difficult enough with the fact that we had lost our parents, that this was from my mom's side. And then I had to further let my first cousins know, and whatever surviving aunts, because Lynch does not, it doesn't skip a generation. And sorry, every generation, oops, every generation, every child would have a 50% chance of having Lynch. So I had to go out and call everybody. So there was this incredible pressure on me from all different sides. It was a very, very dark point for me. I went into an incredible, incredible depression and anxiety, and I had to start seeing a psychiatrist, which I see to this day, and I thank God that I do. I was terrified that everybody in my world was going to pass away. I couldn't be left alone for an hour. And so 2012 was really, really tough for me. I did decide to go back to work, but I always had this overhanging cloud of when was the other shoe going to drop. And so I was also told that because of the Lynch mutation, which just keeps on giving, that I would have to have a radical hysterectomy. And that was done in March 2013. So this was now my second major surgery. And this image here was that you see on the screen is post my total hysterectomy, where I was probably at my thinnest. You know, I had dropped in total 95 pounds. And with Lynch, I am on constant surveillance from everything from skin cancer to brain cancer. And there's a list of the annual scans and tests that I get done. So you can imagine, you can imagine the anxiety that comes with always having to have continuous testing done. In fact, there's not a month that goes by that I'm not in and out of hospitals getting some type of test or blood work done. And the thing with Lynch tumors or Lynch cancers is they tend to grow quicker. So that's why you have to be monitored so quickly. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how being a patient turned me into an advocate. So stomach, as I said before, stomach cancer changed everything in my life, absolutely everything. And I think it changed, you know, my family's life in many, many ways, because they were all my caregivers. And I found that there was no support system in Canada for patients with stomach cancer. And I really wanted to do something about it. And I, you know, through my years of seeing my oncologist and having my small one-on-one groups with Katie, we would, you know, just talk to each other. You know, we decided to volunteer, and there were some US groups that my oncologist thought would be great for us to get involved with. And we volunteered for a couple of years with them. And then in 2016, we decided to start My Gut Feeling, which is the organization that I am the chair, volunteer chair, and it's an organization for stomach cancer patients and survivors and caregivers, so that no one would have to go through the journey alone, because we really felt alone as patients during that time. There was just nothing there. We're the first ones in Canada, and we still are almost 6 years later. So a bit about the organization. Again, our mission is to provide support, awareness, and education and information and advocacy for stomach cancer patients, survivors, and their caregivers. We want to dispel the misconceptions about stomach cancer so that we can face the physical and emotional and spiritual challenges. We want to provide information on what it's like to daily go through this, being diagnosed, living with it, surviving it, And we want to improve the quality of life and give a voice to patients and caregivers and provide peer mentorship based on personal experience. So support is what we do best. It's the heart of our foundation. We do peer-to-peer support. People reach out to us at every stage of their diagnosis, for initial diagnosis. Sometimes they're with us right through to the end. We have in-person meetings with them, telephone meetings, virtual meetings. COVID did a number but on everybody, but we still managed to make sure that people that were in need could come to us. And we have monthly support groups that have been held for the past 6 years. And these groups provide patients, survivors, and caregivers a safe and confidential place to speak about anything they want. And they're held every second Wednesday of each month. You can go to our website, www.mygutfeeling.ca, if you want to join or if you have any questions. And we have done everything. We've gone, you see these images here. One is of our first actual support group, which was in person. Now we do them virtually. I've visited patients in palliative care. We've gone to funeral. And we've also, just in extending of the support that we do, we support the Stomach Cancer Sisters, which is a private Facebook group for young women dealing with stomach cancer. And we host their bi-monthly virtual groups, which are on the first and third Tuesday of the month. And this is an amazing young group of women who are so engaged and so there for each other. And part of the reason we want to support them and support women that are going through cancer is that one of our patients is one of the women who started this group. And unfortunately, both her name is Abby, and Lexi, which was the other founder, passed away, both of them under 30. And so we want to make sure that this community is not left out. We also have annual educational conferences, and our main objective is to bridge the gap between patients and survivors and the healthcare community. So we bring everybody together. We have international speakers. We deal with topics that are important, such as nutrition and survivorship and psychosocial elements. So it's a very holistic approach. We've done it in person the past 2 years. They've been virtual, but it's a great day for people to ask questions, learn from each other. So doctors learn from patients, patients learn from doctors. And we started it in 2017, and we will also be doing it this year on November 26th, I believe, and it's going to be in person. And we have education series with our Q&A series of specific topics. And one specialist will come in and do a presentation, and there'll be a Q&A, I guess similar to this, but it's usually a healthcare provider in some way, shape, or form. We've done diet, we've done the genetics of stomach cancer, and hopefully in the fall we'll be doing the psychosocial effects of living with stomach cancer. Our website is a great resource. We have, any question you have, you can just click on our resources page. We have patient journeys. We have different information about stomach cancer, what to ask your team before, during, before surgery, after surgery. We're also really proud of our diet and nutrition resources. And the image you see at the end there is a recipe book that is available online, or if you reach out to us at info@mygutfeeling.ca, we can send you a complimentary copy. It's a fantastic recipe book done with Nourish magazine and the Dietitians of Canada. And it's great for those of us that have no stomachs and that are going through, living with stomach cancer. We also do a lot of awareness because this is one of the things that we still need to work on. So November 30th, we have initiated it as Stomach Cancer Awareness Day. It's called The Power of Periwinkle. It's a social media campaign. And we started this in 2017, and landmarks across Canada light up in periwinkle blue, which is our color. It's the stomach cancer color. And you'll see that in 2017, we only had 6 cities light up. And last year, even amidst COVID, we had 26 locations across Canada and the US light up. And people take pictures and they share it onto, they post it on their sites, and then we share it onto our social media and onto our website. And it's just a great way of people being aware of this disease, which is so lethal and has very little funds for research. This is our pin, which is an empowerment pin, and it's I live without a stomach, and we just wanted to make sure that people who live without a stomach feel strong all the same, and you can visit the site if you want to get one. And it's, again, all about awareness and making patients feel strong and in control, because so many times you feel so out of control when you're going through this. We do lots of advocacy work through research. Connie mentioned that we sit on a number of patient advocacy teams as patient advocates for research projects. We're quite proud of that. We have submitted patient submissions for drugs to get reimbursement here in Canada, and have been successful with that. We do partnerships, one of which is with the Canadian Cancer Survivor Network, and we do lots of collaboration with US organizations and international patient organizations. For us, it's the louder the voice, the more we can get done to bring awareness to this very, very underserviced cancer. And just moving forward, these are some of the things we'll be doing this year. I just wanted to note that our stomach cancer conference is November 26th. Again, Stomach Cancer Awareness Day is November 30th, and Las Vegas is lighting up. And we will also be publishing an information booklet on stomach cancer in 2023. So I'm going to switch back to me because my stomach, my cancer story doesn't finish there. So life had gotten back to a little bit of normalcy. I celebrated my 50th birthday in 2016. I started to travel again. I still dealt with a lot of the side effects that people without a stomach deal with, even though I have 20% left. So anemia, fatigue, B12 deficiency, iron deficiency, but I learned to deal with them. I learned how to eat a little bit better. I learned, what not to eat, what to eat, when to eat, all of that. So things were, as normal as they could be. These are just some family images because I'm all about pictures and saving every moment and every memory that I possibly can, which my family thinks I'm a little crazy about that. And about, just remembering things. And then this is take 3. So I call it The World Stops and So Did I. So in 2019, the fatigue that I've been talking about previously just got unbearable to the point that it began to affect everything in my life. I just couldn't function anymore, and I had to stop working. And they couldn't figure out why it was so bad for me. And then, of course, we know in March of 2020, COVID hit and we were all in lockdown. And around that same time, after numerous tests, every which way, like every type of, they formally diagnosed me with chronic fatigue syndrome. So that was a big hit for me because I was like, it was just, I thought, oh God, so this is now something that I will have to live with as well for the rest of my life. In August of that summer, I had a scan done because I hadn't had one done in about 4 years, and it showed a suspicious lesion in my right ureter. So I went right back into self-advocacy mode and reached out to my urologist. By September, I had a cystoscopy done, and they took some pathology, and but they couldn't get everything out. So in October, I was scheduled for a laparoscopic nephroureterectomy. So they took out my right ureter and my kidney. And so the top image is just an image of, actually, while I was going through all of this and still trying to have fun. And the bottom one is me, probably really, really quite happy and high on medications post my surgery in October. So that was a bit tough. I had a catheter in for a couple of weeks. It was very painful. It was done laparoscopically. And then in November, I got the diagnosis that this was an aggressive urothelial carcinoma of the right ureter, and it was invasive, stage 2-3. So this was incredibly frightening for me, once again. And of course, it was a lymph-related tumor. And I was a bit dumbfounded, but I wasn't really surprised. And I thought, okay, I've got to get through this again. So I made sure that I was getting the best possible care for treatment, because they told me I did have to have treatment. I went for 2 consultations, and then I started again between Christmas and early winter, a rigorous chemo protocol of cisplatin and gemcitabine. Now you have to imagine this was during COVID, so I did this all on my own, in the sense that my wonderful husband, who would drive me every day and drop me off and then come and have to pick me up 8 hours later, and the eeriness in the cancer center that I was at, which was Princess Margaret, of all these patients who we were all on our own, and of course no one could really talk to each other because these masks, and this was when no one really knew what was going on, and it had such a psychological effect on me, on top of the fact that I had horrible side effects to this regimen of chemo. So I ended up with 3 different blood clots and had to go on blood thinners. The incredible nausea and vomiting, and of course the fatigue was just horrible. And so they put me on steroids, which turned me into an insane person. So I had days where I was crying all day, and then in one moment I was hyperactive, and then again the super anxiety came back. So this all was coming to a head, like as I was still going through the chemo. So I had to actually ask them to lower the dosage of the steroids. And these are just some images of me trying to make it through that take 3 of my cancer. And then we go to, yes, take 4 again. And so in June, I had a cystoscopy as a follow-up, and they found a suspicious lesion in my bladder. And I have to tell you, I just kind of shook my head. And, my urologist said that once they did the cystoscopy, the initial pathology indicated that it was in situ, but it also appeared to be high grade, and it had invaded into the first layer of the bladder. And so they recommended a TURBT which is a procedure to go into the bladder and remove the tumor. So that was done in July, and then 1 week later, the diagnosis came back that no, it wasn't. It hadn't gone into that first layer. It was just in situ, but it was high grade, which is not uncommon with lymph-related tumors or in the bladder when they're in situ. And I had to go through a treatment, an immunotherapy treatment called BCG. I won't even go into the French designer name that I call it, but it's actually a germ derivative of let me double related to tuberculosis. Sorry, I had to check my notes there. And they administer it into your bladder. So I have to say that immunotherapy was much easier, but this protocol is quite bizarre because they inject it right into your bladder and you have to do all of these strange things. Like I had to roll around for 2 hours to make sure that this mixture would stay in my bladder. And yeah, TMI, it was just a very strange process, but much easier than chemo. And I did that for 6 weeks. And then in October, I went for another follow-up. And the cystoscopy once again showed that that lesion was gone, but the initial treatment didn't work. And so I had to go in for another surgery. And even though all my other testing had come back negative, like my cytology, I had to go in for another surgery. The pathology confirmed again that it was another instance of urothelial carcinoma in situ. And I had to go through the immunotherapy treatments, another 6 rounds. And then finally in March, when I went for another cystoscopy, it revealed no new lesions. Yay, finally. And so the aim now is for me to be on this treatment. It's called a maintenance treatment for the next 2 years. And again, these are just my smile pictures of me trying to infuse, normal life and happiness and be with family and friends through all of this craziness. And so now, so of course, still have chronic fatigue syndrome, which is worsened by all the treatments and surgeries. I still suffer from eating issues, which even up until 2 days ago, I had a bad reaction to something and I vomited. I still suffer from chemo brain. I am continuously tested and tested again and tested again because of Lynch. And I continue to advocate for stomach cancer because, as I said, it changed my life. It changed a lot of it changes everybody's life who is touched by it, and it's an orphan cancer. And so for me, that is what I hope to keep doing, and also advocate for other cancers. But I am here and I'm alive and grateful for every moment, and try to smile every day because really there's nothing much else I can do but smile and try to get through each day. And so this is just a personal thank you to, it takes a village, they say, to raise a child, but it takes a village when you're dealing with someone who has chronic and very life-threatening issues that I've had and chronic issues that I've had. And so these are all the doctors, or most of the doctors and healthcare people that have helped me and been there always. A big shout out to our healthcare system, to my family and my friends, and you can see it all. Those are, for me, it's just a personal thank you to everyone who's actually kind of been there for me over the past 11 years. through this journey, and hopefully will be there through the rest of my journey. So I thank you for your time. And if anyone has questions, and if I'm able to answer them, I will be more than happy to do so.
Hi, Teresa, thank you. Okay, so we do have some, hi, how's it going? So we do have some questions, but I'm just going to do our ending, and then we'll get to the questions. So we just wanted to say thank you so much for attending our webinar today. CCSN would like to thank you, Teresa, for that really insightful presentation and for all the work that you do for the cancer community. This is one in a series of webinars we have planned for 2022. Registration information for our next webinar will be out soon, so watch your inboxes and social media feeds for that. Quick note about emails. If you're not seeing your emails in your inbox, please check your spam and junk folders because we use a third-party email service. So please check your spam folder and mark emails from CCSN as safe, and add us to your contact list to be sure that you get all our info straight to your inbox. As always, all of our previous webinars are accessible on demand through our website, www.survivornet.ca. Search for webinars. Thank you again for attending. Enjoy your day. We're going to take questions. I'm going to stop the recording, and then we'll take questions privately. So if you'd like to ask some questions, we do have some that were asked during the recording, and we're going to get to those now. Okay?
Great.
Okay. Hang on a second.